How's it going, everyone? Patrick from Halloween Year Round, and today I'm here to share with you the story of a man, a mouse, and how said mouse would enter into the public domain. So, on January 1st of 2024, the animated theatrical short Steamboat Willie and with it the classic version of Mickey Mouse entered into the public domain in the United States. Now, every horror fan and horror creator out there is now rushing to get this beloved character into their next horror movie and to make him the newest horror icon. So it's definitely been a fun one as there have been several projects been going on, but the ones who got to their is it to be the very first are directors Jamie Bailey and writer Simon Phillips for their movie The Mousetrap, which is what we're going to be reviewing today. Now, as the old saying goes, just because you're the first doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best. And this is definitely the case for this movie, is a movie in particular. Originally, this movie was called Mickey's Mousetrap, which personally I thought was a better horror title name, but I think they probably thought it might have been a little bit too on the nose, and the Walt Disney Company might not have been a fan of that.
You are so sued!
So they decided to rework it as The Mousetrap, which is what the final title is. So there you go. And our story begins ironic is it with a very ironic take on the classic Star Wars title crawl, in which they basically have to clearly state that they are not affiliated, that the filmmakers are not affiliated with the production of the Walt Disney Company or any of their affiliates and whatnot. It did give me a good laugh, especially because it was getting more and more humorous as it was going up. But then we get to our is it the beginning of our story. In this case, we have a young woman named Alex who's about ready to celebrate her birthday. She's played by a young and up and coming actress, Sophie McIntosh. And and I have to say, she was pretty is a really good in it. I did enjoy her performance overall. I also did notice that the setting itself was in a very Dave and Buster's-esque arcade entertainment center called Funhaven, which was very interesting. I was, definitely getting some Willy's Wonderland flashbacks with that, but definitely not as like decrepit or whatnot. It actually looked like a nicely maintained place, but it was like very low lighting as it was like later in the night, so it was interesting to see how they were going with that. So the owner of the place goes back into his office and he has like a nice little home theater set up with your classic projector and screen, and just for some reason he starts playing the movie Steamboat Willie, like like from an original film canister, which was interesting. I did like the retro aspect of that. I thought that was really cool, but at the same time though there was not really like kind of a setup, like other than it's just he literally likes like old school, you know, Walt Disney classics from back in the day. Like, he has like an Alice in Wonderland poster. He, of course, has like, like a poster of Steamboat Willie and a bunch of other things. And it was interesting, like, with that, it was from that. But at the same time, though, uh, of course, the way he gets possessed in the film was very odd. um, it did confuse me a bit, especially like, was it some kind of weird supernatural entity that was like possessing the owner and making him become the killer, or was it something maybe a bit deeper or more traumatic? It's not really well established other than like some kind of ghostly laughs periodically, and I'm just thinking to myself like, okay, so is the guy possessed? Did he just snap? It's just kind of confusing. And then of course you have the main cast and whatnot, basic is celebrating uh, Alex's birthday party, and of course you have like your typical like roster. You have the really nerdy guy, in this case played by actor as a by Ben Harris, who plays the character of Ryan. Then, of course, you have the goth girl, who was played by Mackenzie Millis as the character of Rebecca. And then, of course, you have like your other characters, like the best friend, the former high school jock, and it just becomes like your standard affair when it comes to like I think they were kind of going with like a more of a classic slasher movie, something along the lines of Scream, but it definitely wasn't as memorable as Scream. Like I wouldn't say that any of the kills with the Mickey Mouse killer were really like super memorable to me. Like a lot of it was just kind of like your as a standard stuff, like nothing where I'm like oh wow, like like I hadn't even thought of and whatnot. Because basically the guy's like wearing like a vintage black and white Mickey Mouse mask, and he just has a knife just going around and like stabbing his victims one by one. Although it was interesting to see like how he did get to some of them. Like he did use like a certain kind of teleportation, which was really interesting. And was thinking like, oh wow, like is he really going to be like clever in terms of like going back and forth in terms of like like trying to pick off his victims one by one, and it it becomes a bit inconsistent. Like sometimes he does it, sometimes he does, sometimes it doesn't really become a factor, and it's just really odd. Like, and I just thinking like, okay, so you have like this really interesting way to like like introduce Mickey Mouse, to make him into like a horror icon, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, like what could you do with it? Is it because like especially like for those of you like myself, like who are lovers of classic animation, like old school Mickey Mouse, especially in the very beginning, back in the 1920s and 30s, he's a very scrappy guy. Like, he's very aggressive. He gets in your face. I'm thinking, like, I was really hoping that they were going to do something along those lines where they were going to have him be more like like I said, like like maybe he was going to be like very like kind of cartoonish in terms of like how he was going to kill his victims, or he was going to be like very funny with the way he was going to kill his victims, and it doesn't really go there. Like I was like kind of disappointed, like where I'm like like you have this opportunity to really like play up, like I said, this like Mickey Mouse killer character, like I said, have fun with it. Like I said, be creative. Like you could definitely like, do a lot of interesting things. And I just felt like it was just a lot of missed opportunities, and I know they could have done better. I mean, the movie itself like isn't really terrible. I just know that it is, but it wasn't like as good as I was hoping it was going to be. It's kind of a very middle of the road kind of as a film. And I mean, like I said, if you're generally curious to check it out, like, by all means, but at the end of the day, like, it was just like, okay, it was just, that was interesting. They had a few good ideas. It was kind of a bit of a missed opportunity at the end of the day, but, just it is what it is. That's what I was saying about, just because you're the first doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best at doing this. I mean, heck, like when Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey got announced, even I'm like, okay, like let's see what you can do. Now the first one of that was just bad, but to the director's credit, he took the money he made from the first one, as a reinvested it into the second film, and it was just so much better. I almost wonder if that might be the case because, especially at the very end, post credit, is that there is a post credit scene where they are foreshadowing something where they could continue the storyline. If they do, I hope they definitely rework the killer because, like I said, I thought he was going to be more like a ghost face kind as a kind of character, but it never really got, he never really got there, and it's just you gotta like come up with the concept and just stick with it. So it's like I need to like have a bit more context in terms of like why is this Phantom possessed Mickey Mouse guy like why is he going around like stabbing these is it kids is it these teenagers and all that and I'm like like gotta like give me a little bit more to work with than that. Yeah, so it is what it is with that unfortunately, and like I said, I know they could have done better because like I said, like I really was, hoping for some, really fun moments. I mean, there was like one or two amusing moments, like for example, when the character of Alex is going into uh, as a, one of the offices to try to call to get help since the place gets locked up and they have no way to open the locks. She sees the Steamboat Willie cartoon like playing on a computer screen, and then you hear like the Mickey Mouse killer basically, uh, kind of teasing her a little bit, and I'm like, okay, that was weird. As a setup, but okay, let's see where you go with that. But, other than that, though, yeah, not so much, unfortunately. So in the end, it's just, your standard slasher film, which was okay. Nothing really special other than the fact that it's the first horror movie to have Mickey Mouse as a serial killer. But like I said before, just because you're the first doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best. But yeah, hey, if you're curious about it, like, give it a rental, like it's not that much, or just wait for it to come to a streaming service. So, yeah, that's what I'm gonna personally as a recommend. But yeah, like especially nowadays, like, there are far more better horror movies out there. Like you got Long Legs, you got Cuckoo, you got Maxine. So like any of those movies would definitely be a major step up. I'd even, go back and rewatch Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey too. Like I think that that was a far more entertaining as a movie than The Mousetrap because, like I said, I was a bit bored at times, like watching it. But yeah, so those are my personal recommendations. But yeah, let's just hope that the next Mickey Mouse horror movie that's coming up, Screamboat Willie, which will have David Howard Thornton as a of Terrifier fame, aka Art the Clown, playing a Mickey Mouse as a killer on an actual steamboat, which should be really fun to see. So, fingers crossed that that will be good. So, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. All the good YouTube stuff. If you don't, you may be as a held up as in a Dave and Buster's as a like style as an entertainment play as a place, trapped as a with a Mickey Mouse serial killer on the loose. And as always, every day is Halloween.